So, good morning to all our friends and attendees from out of India, and good evening to all of those from within India. It's a great pleasure to headline the month of June for the 56th webinar series of Analytics Wednesday, The Power of Python and IDEA. We have a great speaker, a very engaging, insightful, experienced speaker in Brian Element, the lead solution architect for CaseWare IDEA. This webinar series, the Analytics Wednesday series, is brought to you by SAMA Audit Systems and Softwares Private Limited, and it is supported by the Government of Canada Trade Commissioner Service. I would like to take a moment and introduce the speaker, Brian Element. Brian is the lead solution architect for CaseWare IDEA. He previously worked for the Canadian federal government for over 30 years, where he finished his career as a financial advisor with Public Services and Procurement Canada on the data analytics team. He has used IDEA extensively in external audits, internal audits, special exams, and internal control testing. For the past 18 years, Brian has been a CaseWare IDEA trainer, very instrumental in developing resources for IDEA users, and he is the author, the creator, and he's put together the IDEAScripting.com website, and he's also an active contributor to the IDEA support website. So we have a wonderful opportunity here to hear on the power of Python and IDEA with an expert speaker, Brian Element. So Brian, over to you. I'm just going to make you the host.
Okay, thank you very much for that introduction. Let's just go see. Of course, we'll. 1 sec. So just, oops, 1 sec, the wrong thing. Just want to confirm everybody's seeing my slide?
Yes, Brian.
Screen?
Yes.
Perfect. Okay.
Thank you.
Well, thank you very much. So welcome everybody and a good day. I hope everybody's doing well. So we're going to talk about the power of Python in IDEA. So this is something that the GG has been asking me to do for a while now, and I finally caved in to say, yeah, we'll do it, because it's something that I wanted to do. I just wanted to make sure I had the time to do it properly and set it up. So we finally found a date where we could do it, because it is something that's very powerful for IDEA. And I think hopefully through this presentation, you're going to see the different ways that IDEA or Python can interface with IDEA. Because I'm going to walk you through the different scenarios and give you a bit of the history of Python in IDEA, and show you do a few different demonstrations on how to do it. Of course, you got to realize that this is only a short webinar and everything like that, so I'm only going to give you kind of the high value, hopefully something that'll whet your appetite and make you interested in wanting to try this out more, and it'll give you you'll see the different ways that you can do the interface. So what I plan on talking about in this session is first off just the discussion of Python in IDEA, give you a bit of the history, what is the Python in IDEA and everything like that. Next section is Python in custom functions. So this is really an opportune time to be giving this session, because with version 12, we had of IDEA, we had the custom functions updated so that Python integrates in the custom functions much easier than it previously did in version 11. So if anybody was not played with Python and custom functions in version 12, you may be surprised about what it can be done now. Next section, and a section that a lot of people are interested in, is basically taking your IDEA scripts and translating them to Python so then you can work on them. And the final thing that I'll be talking about is this is actually a module developed by CaseWare IDEA called the IDEALib.py, and it gives you a lot of additional functionality that allows you to interface easily between IDEA and Python. and I will be doing a demonstration on how to use that and talking more about that. So really, the session is just to sort of give you an overview of the different ways that you can use Python within IDEA. So now I'm just going to give you kind of a bit of the background. So actually, Python was originally introduced in IDEA in version 10.4. So Python's been integrated in IDEA for a couple of years. Originally, when the original integration was done, we were using Python 3.5.3. The problem is that Python, being the type of language it is, it's always being upgraded and new versions are coming out. Unfortunately, with IDEA, we have to bake Python into IDEA to actually be used within IDEA. So we have to use the most current version at that point in time that we are, releasing the latest version of IDEA. So when we first did it, 3.5.3, it was the most current version when 10.4 came out. Since then, IDEA 11 used 3.5.3. We didn't do any upgrades, but in 12 we decided to upgrade the version of Python. So we upgraded it to 3.9.3. Right now, I think the version number is like 4.1 or something like that. So it's always being upgraded, and we will probably, in IDEA 13, have the newest version of Python. So what we did is, at that point in time when we were integrating Python into IDEA, we took the most current stable version of Python and integrated that into IDEA, and that is the 3.9.3. And it has like lots of additional functionality. So generally with this version of Python, you can write, pretty robust code. Also included in there, we've included different modules. So these modules allow you to do additional things. So Python is the kind of the development language, but there's like tens of thousands of add-on modules out there that do specific things. And what we've done is we've tried to find the better or the best modules that relate to data analytics and include them within IDEA so that you could use them directly. In this one we've added on a beautiful soup and requests. Now, any of people who have played with Python, they may realize that beautiful soup is kind of the module if you want to do any web scraping. So if you want to get information off of a website, like download tables, downloads informations, beautiful soup is the module that allows you to do that. So having that involved, now you can use IDEA or create Python scripts with IDEA that can go and get information from websites, which is, I think, really cool. We also have something called Flask, and you can see there's several different modules with Flask. So Flask actually allows you to create your own web pages. So now with IDEA 12, if you played with IDEA 12, you may know that we have a built-in Chromium browser. So we can display web pages within IDEA, within a tab within IDEA. So using Flask, you can do your analysis in Python and then send your output as a web page to a tab, to a web browser tab within IDEA. So that is, that we haven't started playing with that yet, but that gives us lots of possible functionality out there that we didn't have previously. The next big thing here is we've got stuff like matplotlib, pandas, scipy. So these modules are all the big modules that are used for data analytics, big data. So these are the main modules that you can go in, and actually we'll see later on, one of the demos will be using pandas to do some type of analysis. So these are really the ones to do the data analytics. And finally, we got something, the PyWin32, and this is actually probably the most important module because this is the module that allows Python to connect directly with IDEA. So it allows us to write Python scripts that will go in and, perform tasks, do any type of analysis with IDEA. So all these modules come with IDEA 12, and they're already baked in. So you don't have to add them in yourself. They're already there and ready to be used. And finally, we got the IDEALib. So this is our own package, and I'll talk a bit more about that later on at the end of the session. So just kind of a heads up, if you've ever tried to run anything in Python or want to do anything in Python, by default, IDEA comes with Python not set up, but you can't actually use Python, or it's enabled. So what you have to do is within IDEA is the first time, anytime you run like a custom function that's in Python or a Python script, if Python hasn't been enabled within IDEA, you'll have to go into the options within IDEA and just find the place where it says enable Python integration and make sure you tick it. If this has not been selected previously, what ends up happening is if you try to run like a Python custom function, you'll get an error message saying that Python is not currently enabled within IDEA, and you'll just have to go in and enable it to be able to run this. So generally, when I install a new version of IDEA or update my IDEA or anything like this, first thing I'll do is go into the options, and this is one of the options that I'll go in and set, allowing the Python to be run within IDEA. Okay, now I'm going to jump into custom functions. So as you may or may not be aware, custom functions are accessible from the equation editor. So within the equation editor, we can write our own functions that allow us to perform, certain types of analysis. So instead of writing out, the function within the equation editor and using the @ functions, we can go in and create our own custom function that previously would only allow us to access IDEAScript. With version 12, now we can do the custom functions from using Python also. So we have, two options. So in version 10.4 and version 11, if you wanted to run any type of Python within the custom function, you had to use the @python command. And when you were running it, you had to make sure that the Python name, there's all type of different requirements to make it work properly. And lots of times you might have syntax errors because you're not, you don't have the Python script name correctly, or it's not capitalized properly. Like this was all kind of things that people had problems, including myself, using the @python because it was too exact. So with version 12, we've updated it so that the @python still is there, but now you can go in and create a custom function. And being a custom function from a user's point of view, it's seamless because a custom function works exactly the same as an function. You basically call the custom function, you give it the parameters, and it gives you back the solution or whatever the value is that the custom function creates. So from a user's point of view, it's seamless. Like you don't know whether it's Python or IDEAScript, and from a user, you don't care. From a developer, you do, but from a user's point of view, you don't care. And that's what I was, when we're doing this, that's kind of what I wanted is for the custom functions is from a user's point of view, is I wanted it to be seamless. So, and I'm going to be doing a demonstration. We're going to do just a real simple Python custom function in a second. So when you do create a new custom function within the equation editor, it'll ask you whether or not you want to, to create it as an IDEAScript or a Python function. So you'll end up choosing between the two. And we also did a lot of other updates to the custom functions. Now, custom functions can be grouped by function type. So previously, when you're creating custom functions, there was just a big list. Now they can be grouped whether the custom function relates to date, character, numeric, time, or whatever. So it's basically the same type of groupings that are available within the @functions, and we'll see that too. The help, one thing that always annoyed me about the help when you're creating custom functions is that there's no paragraph break. So basically it was a run-on. So that's been fixed. Also, I'll show you, if a custom function is fairly complex, it's better to create and test it in a Python editor and then copy it to the custom function. Now I'm going to create a simple one, but we're going to do it first in a Python editor and then copy it over into the custom function. It's just because the custom function editor is built more for IDEAScript. You'll be using it for Python, but it doesn't really have like all the syntax functionality and everything that you would have in an editor. So you're better off, making sure it works in the editor and just copying it over to the custom function. So with that, I'm just going to switch over into IDEA. Oops. One second. There we go. All right, so I'm in IDEA. So I'm running IDEA 12, so the latest version. And I brought in the general ledger file. So this is a file that is available within the samples folder. It's you just import it. So I usually like to use this one for demonstrations. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to create a new virtual field that I will create a Python custom function to populate. And so easy enough, I'll just go in, I'll hit add, I'm just going to go, and this function is going to be real easy, add 2 numbers. I'm going to say, and actually I'm going to change this to character for right now. And I'll explain why it's a character, even though it's 2 numbers as we go along. Got to leave some mystery to this. So within the equation editor, to create a custom function, you'll go to the custom functions. You open that up, and here you'll create a new one. So under new, previously it would just take you to the IDEAScript. Now you have a choice between that or a Python custom function. So I'm going to select Python custom function. Now I could start writing this here, but for more complex ones, it kind of lacks editing tools and everything like that. So generally, I like to go in and use an editor. So I'll just open up my editor here. So I use Visual Studio Code. Reason being is I've been using it for a while. I'm used to the functionality more or less. There's lots of stuff here. It's really advanced. But there's lots of other editors out there. Like there's PyCharm. There's probably like half a dozen different good Python editors out there. So really, which one you use doesn't really matter. It's basically you find one that you're comfortable with, and that you go and you start using, and you learn the functionality and everything like that. So I sort of focused on Visual Studio Code. One of my colleagues uses PyCharm. Doesn't matter, we can share code back and forth. That's all fine. It's just whatever you want to use is the easiest. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a function within Python. So hopefully everybody might know a bit of Python. If not, I'll sort of explain what's going on, because we're going to keep this really simple. So when we're creating a custom function, all this is actually a Python function. So we create it the same way as a regular Python function. So to create a Python function, make sure we have something called the definition. So this is what indicates a function. So if you're used to IDEAScript, this is equivalent to function in IDEAScript. And then we just call it a name, and I'm just going to call it add 2 numbers. As you see, I'm just clicking all over the place. And then here I'm entering the parameters. Sorry about that. Numbers 1 and then number 2. So I'm just going to add two parameters to this function to be used. And then basically how I return it is easy enough, because all you do is when you want to return something out of a function, you use the return keyword. So in IDEAScript, you would make it equal to add 2 numbers equals to whatever we want here. In Python, it's the return. And all I do want to return is number 1 plus number 2. Now, right now, these are numerics. One of the limitations, and hopefully we will address that in future versions of IDEA, is that one of the limitations is that if we're returning anything from a Python script for a custom function, that it has to be a string. It has to be a character. So I have to turn this into a character, and I do that by just adding the string function. And that is, that is easy enough. And here, what I could do here is I could just go in and just test this to make sure it works. So basically, these 2 lines is what I'm going to be copying over into the custom function in Python. But I can also just do some testing. This is usually why I like to do it in an editor, is because you can do testing. I can just do print, and then I can add 2 numbers, and I'll say 1, 3. And then I can just run this. Let's save it and run it. Oops. And here, after a whole bunch of blah, blah, that tells you what's going on, we can see that the answer is 4. So it gave me the correct answer. So I'm just going to copy this line, or I just copy this back over, and I'm going to go back into IDEA. So we got this. So I'm just going to call this add I did a space in here. There we go. So I'm going to just add that in here. I'm going to add the parameters. So this is all standard. So this is the same way we do it with this IDEAScript or Python. So it works exactly the same. I'll just call this number 1, number 2. So this is just saying that in this custom function, I'm going to be using these 2 parameters. And then from this, I'm just going to grab the line, this line here. Now, as I said, we could have done this quite easily in the editor, but if it's a longer one, it's easier to test and everything between, in the actual Python editor. And I can just see if it gives you the proper results. Gives me 3, perfect. So now, this is the only other thing here is now we can categorize it. So this is new in version 12. We'll say it's returning a number, so it's numeric. So I'll just go validate, save. So this is in Python, so this is easy enough. And now it's available. And if we go into the editor, custom functions, under numeric, we can see I've got add 2 numbers. Now, I didn't actually add any of the help or anything like that, but you could add a lot of different information here about this. And to access it, it's through the hashtag, add 2 numbers, and I'll just 4 and 5. And then I'll click on OK. Oops. And creates it, and here we got the 9. So there. So that is doing the custom functions. So I was just wondering, I saw a question earlier. Was there a question or?
Brian, I believe you answered that question. It was, which Python editor do you recommend?
Oh, okay. Yeah, no, I use Visual Studio Code because it has lots of functionality. It's a Microsoft product. It has lots and lots of functionality. It has specialized modules just for Python. So when you download it, it's kind of just the framework, and then you'll download items to do Python. It's got code completion. It does formatting. So within Python, there's something called the PEP8 that tells you how the code should be properly formatted, the number of spaces. It breaks up lines automatically, and this will do this all for you automatically, which is nice. So you don't have to worry about it. for different functionalities. If you hover over it, it'll give you like the help and everything like that. So I find it quite useful. One of my colleagues, he uses PyCharm, and it does a lot of the same similar things. And I know there's other editors out there. So I've just started with this one, and this is the one that I'm kind of comfortable with right now.
Great. Brian, I have a question from my side.
Yep.
Before you move ahead. So if I make a custom function within IDEA 12, can I copy that code and deploy it in a Python editor? So my question is, can we do a bit of to and fro between, you've shown us how we can move a Python code into IDEA and deploy it and get that virtual field, but can we do it vice versa, like a IDEA custom function code into Python and use it in the Python editor?
So are you talking, so this is, so it's been written in Python?
Yes.
Okay, yes, you could. So yeah, you can just copy it over into the editor. What it is it's just a normal Python function. So then you'll have to add some code to call that function with the parameters. But yeah, you could do that quite easily.
Great, great. Thanks, Brian.
Yeah,
thank you.
No problem. Okay, so the next one is we're going to talk about doing IDEAScript to Python. So I'm going to do it two different ways. First, I'm going to kind of show you the long way of doing it, or the manual way of doing it, so you get sort of gain an understanding of how it works. But then I will show you a plugin that we've developed called the IDEAScript to Python plugin. It hasn't yet been released to the IDEALib. I'm still waiting for some other things that I need before we can actually upload it to the IDEALib. So what this plugin does is it'll take anything that was generated from a history, so an IDEAScript from a history, the recording, or the project overview, and it'll create a Python script that's ready to run and modify. Now, this plugin really only works with unmodified scripts. So if you go and you've taken the script, or you've done it sort of, started from scratch, or you've added in other types of features and anything like that, more than likely the plugin will fail. But if you are just starting from a fresh, IDEAScript that comes from the history, this is the way you can go about doing it, and then porting it over into Python. So it makes it fairly easy. Like I said, this plugin is not available yet, so we haven't created the installer. There's a few things I'm waiting for before we can post it on the IDEALib. But if anybody is interested in trying out or testing it, you can either send me an email or send Sam an email, and I'm sure they'll just forward it over to me, and I would be happy to share the script with you. The only thing is it doesn't have an installer, so you will have to kind of run it directly. So let's go back to IDEA. This is the fun part. Except IDEA gets bashful every once in a while. There we go. So first of all, I'm going to do this a bit the long way. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to do, well, I shouldn't have closed this. I'll open this up again. I'm just going to do a basic extraction. Direct extraction, do the usual, like, actually I'm going to do account number, because this is good to know too. One of the quirks of switching over to Python. I do 21200. So I'm just doing a simple extraction. I'm just going to leave it as extraction 1. I'll click OK. I'm going to go into history, and I'm just going to grab the code. And I'm going to go back to my editor. And I'm just going to go down here and I'm going to paste it in. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this code and modify it so that we'll be able to run it in Python directly. So we'll be able to do the extract directly in Python. So I'm just going to add in a couple of lines of code here. First thing I'm doing is I'm importing the Win32com.client. So I mentioned earlier, this is one of the modules that is available within the IDEA Python framework. And what this allows us to do is it allows us to connect with IDEA so that we can run IDEA objects within Python. So, this really is the big, the big module to have, just because this is the module that allows us to be able to use Python with IDEA. So I'm just going to copy the code over here. That way I don't make typos. So I'm just going to create a function here. So I'm just going to call it perform extraction. And now what I'm doing is I'm accessing the Win32 client. So how I access IDEA or the IDEA object is to use the line win32com.dispatch, and then the parameters is dispatch equals idea.idea client. So you don't really need to know how this works. You just need to know that it does work. And this is how you can access IDEA. And actually, I'm just going to change it to IDEA. I'm going to change this to client. So we got one less thing to do. And I'm going to move this all over. So this goes into the function. So now what I'll do is I'm going to go in and adapt the code so that it'll run in Python. And it's really not that difficult. There's just a few things you have to remember. Like, first off, there's no such thing as set in Python. It is just variables. So variables in Python can be objects. Actually, everything in Python is an object. So within IDEAScript, we have objects and we have variables. Within Python, everything is an object. Even if it looks like a variable in IDEAScript, it's actually an object in Python. So it makes it easier, so we don't need the set commands. And for this one, in order to be able to run this, all I have to do is get rid of the set. That's all the difference I needed. Same thing here is I'll get rid of the set. Now, the other thing we have to add in is an IDEAScript. Sometimes we don't have the end brackets to hold parentheses. So within Python, even if there are no parameters, if you are calling a function or an object, you need the brackets. Same thing here, task include fields. We need to add that. The DB equals extraction1 IMDB. That we don't actually have to change. We don't have to change that line because this is just a variable and we are placing the extraction1 into the variable name. Next thing is the task add extraction. So here we have to have within Python, you need the parameters. And I'm going to come back to this line in a minute. Same thing, perform task. Whoops. We need the parameters, the brackets around there. So same thing here is we'll get rid of the task, the set, sorry. And in Python, there's no such thing as a nothing. What it is none. So that was the major changes. The only other thing we got to do here is we got the problem. So Python, the double quotes here doesn't work the same way as it does in the equation editor, or sorry, within IDEAScript, where if you've got a quote within the equation editor, you do two sets of quotes. So there's different ways of doing it. One way you can do it is you can use the backslash, and the backslash is the escape character within Python. So that's one way you could do it. Another way you could do it is Python allows you to use either the single quotes or the double quotes for character fields. So if you have double quotes within the character string, you can encapsulate it with single quotes, or if there's a single quote within the character field, you can use it with double quotes. Or like I said, you could also use it with slashes. So either one, that would work. Another thing we can add in nice with Python is they have something called a try. So what this does is it does some error checking, or not so much error checking, but if it fails, it's not going to give you all these errors and everything like that. So a try really means that it'll try the code, and if it doesn't work, it's not going to crash on you. It'll skip down to the finally, or if you're learning Python, there's lots of ways to test for the different problems, and you can give messages or do stuff based on those different problems. And then finally, we'll always run after a try. So from that, I'm always just cleaning up the variables. So there, so that's all done. So the only other thing that I need to do is actually call the function. So right now, we just have it. So I'm just going to copy this over here. And here is my perform extraction. So this will call and run this code. Now I put this in front of an if, name equals main. So this is in Python, this is kind of similar to, with an IDEAScript, all our scripts start with the sub main. This is kind of similar. There's more reasons to it, and I'm not going to go into it, but within Python, you can have like just regular scripts and you can have modules. This just makes sure that you're actually running a script and not a module. If you go do a Google search, there's all kind of YouTube videos out on this that explain it and everything like that. It's one of the special features of Python. So, okay, so what it'll do is it'll run perform extraction. And also, one other thing you got to remember with Python that's different from IDEAScript. In IDEAScript, you can have functions located anywhere in the script. Within Python, the functions always have to be before they are called. So if I put this function below the if name perform extraction, I'll get an error because I won't be able to find it. You always have to have the function before it's actually called. So there we go. So that's done. So I'm going to go back into IDEA. Whoops. And I'm just going to delete this file. So we can make sure that, I'm not cheating here. We're actually recreating it. So now if I'm just going to run it, if I go into IDEA, we can see that there, see the Python there, we created the file. Oh, I didn't add on the refresh file explorer. So we're not seeing it refresh automatically, but we could add that in. So that is kind of the hard way to go about taking an IDEAScript and turning it into a Python script. Now I'm going to show you an easier way using our plugin. So again, I'm going to go back into IDEA. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to just delete everything. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into macros and do a recording. And I'm just going to record the import and doing a couple of different steps for this. And then you can see how easy it is with the plugin, or hopefully you'll see how easy it is with the plugin. So I'm just bringing in the general ledger file. And then I'll just do a simple extraction and a summarization. There we go. So I'm just going to analysis, do a direct extraction. I'll just do amount greater than 5,000. Typical high value. I'll just call it high value. Click on OK. Then I'm going to go back to GL. I'll just do a simple summary. I'll do it by the journal voucher number, sum on the amount. And then I'm just going to have a macros. I'm going to stop the recording and grab the IDEAScript. So here's my IDEAScript. So it's doing the import, the extraction, and the summarization. So I'm just going to save that. I'll just call it test script. So I'm going to close that, and oops. I'm just going to close everything, and I'm going to just delete everything so you make sure that I'm not cheating. A good magician. Got to make sure that it works properly. So I've got this in my IDEAScript to Python. So I've added this manually to my IDEALib. Like eventually we'll have an installer and an icon and everything for that. We haven't got there yet. but we will. And I call this up. So this asks for the script that you want to translate. It does both the ASCII and Unicode versions. So I'm just going to test script. We'll do open. And it goes and runs. And 1 sec, let me just go find it here. And here I'm going to open it up. So here is my test script in Python. So as you can see, it's added in the lines that I need to access the IDEA. It's also added in a whole bunch of constants, and these constants are used in the different functions or the different tasks within IDEA. Like we got here for the creating fields, for the summaries. It's because in in IDEAScript, if you type WI underscore virtual underscore character, IDEAScript knows that that's equal to 0. Python doesn't, so we have to set these up as constants. And finally, here's the Excel import. So we've got the file, and you can see it's gone in and it's added, the brackets where needed. It's taken out the set. It's changed nothing to none. Here, this is the link to the file. Because remember the backslash is a special character or an escape character. If you're using it in an actual, sort of where the file's located, you have to put an R in front of it. So the R then ignores it. So it's one of these little Python things you end up having to learn. Same thing, the direct extraction, the summarization. So it's added on the different formatting. And finally, it's calling all of these different items, and it's doing a file refresh and everything. So I'm just going to go run this. If we go to IDEA, hopefully we'll see it. There we go. So it's doing the import. So it's doing the same thing as what the IDEAScript would have done. And there's the summarization, and it did the client refresh. So this is how you end up taking, if you're doing kind of a direct translation from IDEAScript to Python, this is how you'd go about doing it. Maybe before we go on to the next section, just see, is there any questions?
Brian, I can see a question. Just give me a minute.
Okay.
Does running the Python script also create the audit trail?
Yes. So the audit trails relate to the actual tasks. So here you've got the import and the extraction. So yes, the history gets the audit trail gets created. Were there any other questions or? Okay. Then we shall continue on. So the final item here, sorry, yep.
Brian, I'm sorry. There's a question from Dan, Brian. Can you also create dialog boxes?
Yes, you can, but you can't. Can't create the IDEAScript dialog boxes. So within Python, they have something called tkinter, which creates Python dialog boxes. They're more difficult to make than IDEAScript ones, but their functionality it leaves IDEAScript way behind. You can create all types of dialogues using tkinter, and there's also other packages you can use to create dialogue, but I think some of those other packages you have to pay for, versus tkinter is free and it's it's part of it's actually part of the Python install. And if you want to learn how to use tkinter, just do a Google search. There are YouTube videos out there. There are web pages dedicated to it. There's programming books just on tkinter. So there's lots of different information out there, except it's like I said, there's be a learning curve for the tkinter, just because they have so much flexibility and so many options that you can do. So you can add colors, you can change graphics, you can change fonts, you can do everything that you can't do with creating dialogues in IDEAScript.
Sure, Brian. Brian, can you spell out? You said it's Kinter or tkinter?
Tkinter. It's TKINTER.
Okay, yeah, Dan, I think Dan would have got that. TKINTER, Dan. Okay, great.
Yeah.
Okay, Brian, thank you. You can proceed, please. Thank you.
Perfect, thanks. So the final section here is I want to talk about the IDEALib custom module. So this allows us to more easily interface with IDEA. So this is a Python module that we've created at CaseWare IDEA that allows us to access some of the normal functionality that we might have. So when you install IDEA, if you're ever looking for the package, it's under Program Files, CaseWare IDEA, IDEALib, Site Packages, and you can find it there. So if you're maybe using it in your own, if you're creating a kind of an IDEA package outside of IDEA, you might want to copy that module over so it's accessible for your script. And from there, what you can actually do is we got different types of available functions. Here we can access the IDEA client. So the IDEA client is like when I remember I was doing that long line saying, dispatch equals IDEA.IDEA whatever. That within there, all we have to do is call the IDEA client and does the same thing. We have a function that says IDEA to Python. So this takes a database from IDEA and translates it into a Panda data frame, sorry. So Pandas is one of the major modules that does data analytics. And the data frame is used, it's basically a huge array that holds the information in there, and it's super fast, and there's all kind of functionality around that data frame to do different types of analysis. You also have Py to IDEA, so that's taking this data frame and sending it back into IDEA. Also within there, we can get the list of project files, we can refresh the file explorer, we can see which IDEA language you may be using. So is this an English version of IDEA, French, Spanish, and so on. So like this is great for if you're doing any type of localization and you want to figure out, okay, if IDEA is running in French, then I want to have all of my dialogues in French or English or Spanish or whatever it may be. We have the IDEA, get the IDEA version, a marketing version, IDEA coding. So is this ASCII version or a Unicode version? The list separator, different countries, different languages use different list separators. In English languages, it's usually the comma. Other, like in French and everything like that, it's the semicolon. Same thing for decimal separators, the short date format and long date format. So it gives you a lot of information easily that you might need to either transfer information from IDEA to Python, or if you're doing any type of localization of your script, this is all information you need to know. So I'm going to go back here and I'm just going to go and I'm just going to close everything. Now for this, I'm going to use something a bit different. So just bear with me a second. So I am going to use something called Jupyter Notebook. So this is, if you want to get into Python, this is also something that's good to know. So Jupyter Notebook, this is free. You can install it. Just do a Google search. There's something called Anaconda, like the steak, the anaconda. If you do a search for that, you can download it, and it has all the framework for Jupyter Notebook and a lot of other items that are really good for like R and everything like that. And what it does is it allows you to go and run Python scripts one line at a time, and also allow you to add in comments and everything on a web page. So you can add on different types of explanations and everything like that. And it's really useful if you're doing any type of training. You see this a lot used in data scientists and everything like that. And I know a Jupyter Notebook, like we have, like we're looking at using more of this in some of our analysis within CaseWare, because it's so easy to use, and users just can go in and write their code directly. So I've created this little Jupyter Notebook that'll just run us through using the IDEA library module and show us how it works. So first line here is, each one of these lines I end up running. So right now I have nothing where it says it's blank. That means that this line hasn't been run yet within the notebook. And I just run each one, and it's easy enough to run. I just do Shift Enter. And the little star means that it's working. And as soon as you get the one, that means that it's completed. So what this means is now I've imported the IDEALib into the Python version that's running on this Jupyter Notebook, and now I can use it. So now if I want to go see what the version number of IDEA is, I can just run this line, and I can see that I'm running 12.0.163.25. And if I want the marketing version, I can just see, okay, I'm doing 12. So this is really good to have, because sometimes you may create scripts that have functionality that won't work with previous versions of IDEA, like version 11 or version 10. So if you've got if you get access to the version number, then you can easily go check, okay, is the person running a version of IDEA that I can actually run this script? And if so, then we run it. If not, well, then we give them an error or something like that. We can also see the encoding. So is this an ASCII or Unicode version? Now here we can do the connect to a client. So here I'm connecting to IDEA. So, my previous script, this is the line that's, the dispatch and all that kind of stuff. This is this line here. So, instead of having to remember that line, if you've got access to the library, you can just use this line directly. Now, this is the one that's really interesting for most of us, because this is how we'll take information from IDEA. So I'm going to take the general ledger database, excuse me, and I'm going to import this into what's called a data frame, which is the Panda data frame, which is a huge array that allows us to manipulate the data within Python. So this is taking the information from IDEA and bring it into Python, so now that we can play with it. And this will just take a minute. As we can see here, it's opened up my general ledger database. It'd be sending the information over to this. So now it's completed. And now if I want to actually see that I brought the information over properly, I could just click on the enter in the data frame. And here I can see this is basically a summary, not a summary, but a snippet of my information. So we can see I've got 1,607 rows and 10 columns. If I go back to IDEA, I see I've got 10 columns and 1,607 rows. So I have brought the database, and it's now sitting in Python, so that we can now start doing any type of analysis or advanced analysis with it. Here, I'm just doing a simple extraction. So here again, easy enough, data frame. So this is the name of the variable holding the data. I'm accessing the amount field greater than 5,000. There's also ways that if anybody is used to using like SQL queries or SQL queries, you can have, I think you could use the SQL queries to do your analysis also. So that's something quite interesting. So I'm just going to run this. So I'm just going to go grab the high values. Just go in and see, yeah, we're getting all the high values, which is great. And now I am going to send this back to IDEA. So what I'm saying is the data frame I want to send back is the extract. So this is the variable that's holding the information from this array. This is my new database name. The client is IDEA, so this is where we're sending it to. And I got the option, create unique file. So this is like unique file name. So I just hit enter. So it does give me some warnings. I'm not too sure exactly what it works, but I'm not 100% sure why these warnings are coming up right now, and it's something we'll have to look at. And if we go into IDEA, we can see here that it has brought this extraction back into IDEA. So that's how easy it is to transfer data to and fro from IDEA to Python if you're using the IDEALib. And the final one here is I just did the refresh file explorer. And that is, well, okay. So that covers what I wanted to talk about. So, I just wanted to cover off the high level items on how you can interface with Python. So it gives you, not an in-depth understanding, but at least a beginning understanding of how you can go in there, and then you can start, working on there and, increasing your understanding. So do we have some other questions?
Great. Brian, I think it was a very insightful, engaging session, because Python and IDEA is something which is very new to all of us in India. And I'm sure in addition to your website, IDEAScripting.com, if you could just drop your email coordinate, maybe your Roger's email coordinate in the chat box. So if anyone has any doubt, they can write in either to us or to you directly. And,
yeah, definitely. Sorry about that. Yeah. There we go.
Great. Really appreciate it. That's for everyone's benefit. brian.element@caseware.com. Please keep your question very specific to the topic of the webinar today, everyone. And I'm sure Brian will be able to guide us towards finding a solution to your question.
Hopefully.
Brian, there is one question. Does IDEA version 12, that's CaseWare IDEA 12, come with a Python editor to develop scripts for data analytics, or do we have to use the Python editor outside IDEA, as you told us earlier?
Yeah, no, it doesn't. The reason being is that Python is such a huge community, and we have like Microsoft and developing tools. We can never compete with these tools, with the resources we have. So since they exist outside, like PyCharm, Visual Studio Code, among many others, we don't have a built-in editor, because these editors are free. They're readily available. You just do the simple Google search, and you're going to be able to find them easy enough and install them. Yeah.
Sure, Brian. Great. So, Brian, I think we really liked your session today. Thank you for taking out time to be with us. And there are no further questions. And I'm sure it's added a lot of value to all of us in our learning journey of Python through IDEA. So thank you for being with us, Brian, sharing your knowledge and experience.
Yeah, and thank you very much. And if anybody has any questions, please just send me an email and I will try to help you out the best I can.
Surely they will. And thank you everyone for signing on today. We look forward to having your continued patronage with us to Analytics Wednesday webinar series on the following Wednesday, that's 7th of June, 8th of June, and wish everyone a great day and a great evening. Thank you, Brian. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.